Good morning, friends. Wanted to share with you some strategies for baking and some of your recipes that you've sent to me. You folks are doing, some of you are making cookies at home. So there's a couple of hacks that I've done in the kitchen to help students work on not only make it easier for them to work with the portioning and the mixing, also the organizing. And I'll give you two suggestions here. It's kind of two different tools that you can use to help your kids get a little bit more organized when they're doing their actual baking. So first, actually, I'm going to talk about these scoops. So these scoops are a little bit different than the standard scoops that you can get from the store. You can see they're spring loaded. So these scoops are meant to make scooping a little bit easier. You could use them for ice cream. I like to use them with not only muffin batter but cookie doughs. So the way that you use these, often people use them incorrectly. They kind of just scoop with it and then they squeeze it, and you can see inside there's a little scraper that goes, okay? So how you're supposed to use them is you squeeze them first, which can be a little bit of a challenge for some students. But again, we're working on some small muscle control and some large muscle control. But the way they use these ones would you squeeze first and then do the scoop. And often I would do a hand over hand to help the student do the scoop. And then when we're about to portion it or plate it, then the student would turn and release it. And when they release it, the little scraper releases the ball of whatever you're using onto the tray. So that doesn't matter if you're using one of these smaller ones, which is about probably just a couple tablespoons deep, to this one here, which is a little bit bigger. It's the same method. Squeeze first, then scoop, and then release it and it drops. One of the things, if you're using this for cookie dough, that's fine, they work great. If you're using it for muffin batter or cupcake batter, same process. I do have them squeeze it just so that we're replicating the actual process. But the other thing that I do when the students are portioning this into a muffin tin or a cupcake tin is that I always have them do a 1, 2, 3 tap, and usually they can do that on the counter, just 1, 2, 3, or on the side of the actual side of the cupcake tin. And one of the reasons we do that is a technical side. It actually releases some of the air that's in there. So it's a culinary tactic. Some of the bubbles come to the top so that when you put the batter into a cake mold or cupcake mold, it doesn't explode as much all over the top. But I have them sort of practice that tactic. So squeeze, scoop up, tap, 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 and then they'll go over to their tray or they'll go over to their cupcake tin and then release, okay? One word of warning, and this can sometimes be a little bit of a hidden hazard when you're using these spring-loaded ones, is that you want to make sure that the fingers are not, that when they're holding it, that the fingers are on the outside and they're not curled inside the actual scooper, because if they're inside the scooper and they squeeze, it will pinch their fingers, okay? So that's definitely a caution when you're using these ones. But the hands on the outside, okay, fingers on the outside, see how can I'm not showing it very well. So fingers on the outside and give a squeeze like that, okay? Thumb up here, not down inside. So that's using the scoopers. Now, when using the scoopers, I'm gonna talk specifically about using a baking sheet. Often, items that go onto a baking sheet need to be spaced a specific amount of space apart. So what I will do, I've done a couple different styles of this with the students, but I'll take a pencil, and this is parchment paper, not wax paper, parchment paper. It is more expensive than wax paper, probably triply so, or even like 4 times as expensive. You can use the parchment paper a couple times until it becomes brittle, but it may be worth the investment to work on this tactic. Now, the skill that I'm gonna show you, some baking sheets that you put into, like silicone sheets, have the exact same measurement tools on them that I'm about to show you, okay? So what I'll do with the students is, depending on the spacing of the items, so You can do this a couple different ways. I'll do this as if we're doing 6 items on the baking sheet. It's a kind of a small baking sheet, and often you're making cookies, you'll want to give, about an inch between them. But what I'll do is I've done 2 different styles. I've done both an X, and I've done an X with a circle. All right. Now, what I've done is I've drawn that on the back of the sheet. Well, I drew it on one side of the sheet, both sides are the same. Then what I do is I put the sheet down on the cookie sheet, and you can see it through the cookie sheet. So what that means now is when the student comes in and wants to release, they can see the target on the paper. So again, I'll just go back. You put the circle, I don't know, the X, whatever you want. You put whatever target you want to put on there, and then you turn that downwards. So that's now on the bottom, and you can see through the paper, because it's a little bit like tracing paper. You can see where that item, where the actual space would land, and really gives a really great target for the students to squeeze out the batter, to squeeze out, I don't know, there's a bunch of different things that you could do this way. At home in the past, I've made mashed potato. There's another way you can practice. I've made mashed potato, and then what I will do is I'll actually take the scooper of the mashed potato, put it onto a tray, put that tray into the oven, and give it a bit of high heat, and you get these really nice mashed potato, almost a little bit like hash brown on the outside, and it's still the mashed potato on the inside. So a couple different applications of that. Okay, so portion scoops, okay? Remember, squeeze them first, then do your scoop, then release. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the middle, and you're watching that your child's fingers are not in the middle when you do that. Cookie sheets, what I've done is taken parchment paper, put a little bit of target on the back with a pencil, put the pencil side down. Pencils are toxic, the stuff inside, so you don't want to have that coming in contact with the food. The parchment paper is, it will not bleed through if you're using the cookie dough, so it'll stay on that side, and then you can see the target on the paper, and away you go. All right, quick couple little tips and tricks today. Have a great day.